All right, so this is the first one we're going to look at. I know there was skipped one, but we're going to come back to that one because that one's got a lot of the work already done for you, so I thought we better do this one first so you understand the work. All right, so we're going to, and I changed the question ever so slightly to make it clear. The way it's written, it says on the circle. Well, that could be anywhere, right? That doesn't have to go through the center of the circle. So I wanted to make sure it was clear that it was on the diameter of the circle. Right, so that if you were to connect the 2 points we're given, they would go right, and that segment there would go right through the center of the circle. I'd like you to add this diagram to your notes. Get rid of that. We don't need that right now. Well, imagine the HK is getting erased. It'll go away, I guess, eventually. We don't need that right now. There it is. All right, so you're going to draw that little diagram there to kind of help this problem make a little bit of sense. All right, so we're going to find the equation of a circle with points 5, 6, and -3, 2 on the diameter of the circle. So neither one of those is the center. So don't just go plug those into the equation of a circle, or you'll have an equation of a circle, but it won't be this circle. All right, so we need to find two things, and the thing we should find first is the center. So step one, we need to find the center of the circle. And there's my invisible ink, which will maybe come up. Now, find the center of the circle. And to find the center of the circle, we're going to use the midpoint formula. We used it a teeny weeny bit first quarter. Yes? Ian?
No, never mind. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry if your name's...
We're not saying that.
Okay. So we used it a teeny weeny bit first semester, but you might have forgotten it. And so the midpoint formula, so this is just a point, right? The midpoint, it's got an x, got a y. It's equal to the add of the x coordinates. Oops. That would be the x coordinate of the midpoint and the average of the y coordinates. There we go. All right, so we need to do that first, right? Because we need the center to find the radius. Now, we could find the diameter and divide it in half, but it's actually not as easy as it looks. And when it's a square root, we won't just divide the number under the square root in half. So x2, y2. There we go. All right, so to find the midpoint, which is the center of our circle, it's just going to be, and it's super easy, -3 plus 5 divided by 2, and -2, come on. Like it thinks for the ink. Didn't I write more? There we go, I thought I did. And then -2 plus 6 divided by 2. And then it's just some simple math. So -3 plus 5 is going to be 2 over 2. Come on, I need to know where to write. There we go. So that's going to be 2 over 2. And -2 plus 6 is 4. So that's 4 over 2. And that'll just reduce. So our center is the point 1, 2. Let's just label that on our nice little diagram here, that our center is the point 1, 2. So that's going to be our HK in a moment when we write the equation. But we can't write it yet because we need to do step number 2, which is find the radius. And of course that's going to be the distance formula. It's interesting how there's nothing and it all comes up in at one time. All right, so to find the the radius, that's going to be, now when you're using the distance formula, careful, make sure you use, we'll add this in, make sure you use the center and any endpoint. It doesn't make any difference which one you use, right? It'll be the same distance. But you might like one better than the other. I personally like the 5, 6 better than I like the -3, -2. Right? May as well just use positive numbers. Right? So that's going to be 5 minus 1 squared plus 6 minus 2 squared. Right? And then that'll be the square root of 4 squared plus 4 squared, which is the square root of 16 plus 16, which is the square root of 32. Now when we go to plug it back in the equation, let's just use square root of 32. But for the radius, let's simplify that. What goes in evenly, class, into 32? What was it? 8 and 4. All right, and then how about 8 and 4? What would that be, class?
2.
2 and
2.
2 and 4. So you don't have to break those 4s down. What's that?
I didn't realize they were factoring it.
Oh, that's right. We don't need to break these down. We can just say 4 and 4, right? 1 4 comes out, 1 4 goes away. And so the radius is actually 4 square roots of 2. We don't have to plug that back into the formula, though. We could just use the square root of 32. That'll be a little easier. So last step is to write the equation. And we know how to do that, hopefully. Write the equation. And that just means we need to fill in for x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared. Okay. Any questions, first of all, before we write the equation, on the rest? This is as long as this problem could possibly get, right? Where we have to find the center of the circle, the radius of the circle, and write the equation. I gave you nothing but 2 endpoints, right? Nothing that goes into the equation itself. But all that we need to actually find the equation. All right, so someone's going to help me out here. And that's going to be red 4. Right, so what's the equation going to be?
X minus
Or?
X minus 1
Uh-huh.
squared plus y minus 2 squared.
I think we need to move some factoring. I think we could do without this. Equals?
Square root of 32.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Squared, right? So only one little bit of simplifying. X minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 32 is it. And if you didn't have it, if you have a large handwriting and you can't fit this in your notes, just attach a different sheet of paper and put it on there. This is the only one that's going to be really, really complete, though.
Okay.
We're going to take some shortcuts on the next one, which in your notes is the previous one, because you've already got the answers filled in. Right, so I'm not going to have you copy much of it. I'll put it up here just so that I can review it with you, but this is the only one that's going to be complete, start to finish. So you at home, you can take notes too. Does anyone need more time on this problem? Everyone good? Okay. All right, so actually I need to, I think it is the next one. So it's the next one in mine, but it's the previous one in yours. And there's not a whole lot of writing because everything is kind of filled in. And we're not going to write the steps again. Oh, and I didn't even manage to erase it, did I? That's okay, because you have so much of it there. We'll leave it up there, and I'll just go through it, all right? Because I forgot to erase it. So thing number 1, you got to change the question. The question reads differently, right? And the question's kind of boring. It gives us the endpoint and, the midpoint and one endpoint. Well, we've done several problems like that, and we've only done one so far with 2 endpoints. So if you could just change the direction, and the point doesn't even match your work. So I don't know what happened there. So if you could change the directions to diameter, endpoint, and -8, 2, and 2, 0. So just change that question a little bit. It's the question right before this, the one we just did. Just change the wording a bit.
We change center to.
Yeah, change center to endpoint or cross something out. Yeah, Kristen.
So we just know 2 points, we don't know the center.
Correct. Correct. You already have the only things you need to write in your notes are fix the sentence. A little later on, it has the wrong word in there. It says radius. Why would you use the radius to find the radius? That wouldn't make any sense. Just change that word to center, and then you'll write the equation. So this one doesn't have a whole lot for you to write in because it's already done for you. But I'll just go over it again. So to find the midpoint, you just use the midpoint formula, which is essentially just taking the averages of the x and the average of the y's. Right? If you average the x's and the y's, you'll be right in the center. So we have -8 plus 2 divided by 2 gives us the x coordinate for our center. 2 plus 0 divided by 2 gives us the y coordinate. A little simple math. Right? You add -6 divided by 2, and you divide. So our center is going to be -3, 1. For the radius, we use the distance formula. You already have the just some of the steps in your notes, and that's fine. You don't need to copy this one because you've got enough steps to have it make a little bit of sense. So we just take the difference between our center and either endpoint. I chose 2, 0 because, well, the numbers are smaller. Right? You have to use the center, and you can pick either one of those. So 2 minus a -3 is going to be 5 squared, and 0 minus 1 is going to be -1 squared. When we square those, we get 25 plus 1, which is the square root of 26. And that's our radius, and it actually would not simplify. And so for the equation, we just plug in -3 for h, we plug in 1 for k, we plug in square root of 26 for the radius, and we have x minus a -3 squared in the corner there, plus y minus 1 squared equals the square root of 26 squared, and you just simplify out that minus a negative, make that x plus 3 squared, plus y minus 1 all squared, and the square root of 26 squared is just 26. And there we go.
This is so I guess I never really got this, but what is the equation of the circle used for? Like, what is it used to find?
To represent, so like we have a linear equation to represent a line. We have a equation of a circle to represent a circle. So I did have in here an applied problem. I didn't keep it in because I decided to drop graphing circles. But so for instance, if you wanted to find, if you had a spotlight and spotlight will shine in a circle, and you wanted to represent that in a coordinate plane, then you could figure out are the people the actors in the light, or are they standing in the dark? I decided we would just focus on writing the equations. It's not a big deal to graph them. You graph the center, and you just count the radius in 4 directions and connect the points. Hopefully with the compass, so it's actually a circle. But when students don't, sometimes it looks like somebody sat on their circle. Everybody good on this one? There aren't too many before our whiteboard practice. I know there's a couple more, but not too many more. So this one's in your notes. We're just going to write the equation of the circle. Easy cheesy, lemon squeezy, yellow 5. All right, so as a reminder, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Fill it in for us.
X minus y minus
Yeah, let me just fix them. What happened over here? That was supposed to say square root of 11. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was the r squared. Sorry. We haven't gotten to the plug-in yet. I'm ahead of myself. It looked like a 1. There we go. Okay, continue. What did you say? Y.
Plus 9.
So I'm going to write in a minus and negative so everyone could see where it comes from. Equals, and then R is,
Square root of it.
yeah. So we'll simplify minus and negative. It gives us x minus 2 squared plus y plus 9 squared equals 11, just as you said. And you can write that one in your notes. Yes. Yeah, there are a lot of parentheses when you have minus and negative. So we do 3 more problems on this particular tape, 2 of which are in your notes. And these are actually pretty straightforward. It's just equation from the graph. And it's actually all you got to be able to do is identify the center, which where the dot is. There'll be a dot for the center. That's part of the circle. And identify the radius. So these are actually pretty easy questions. Everybody good? All right, so we want to use the graph of the circle here to find the equation of a circle. So you identify your center. I'll do this one. This one's in your notes. All right, so our center here is at negative 2, 2. All right, so we're just going to plug in negative 2 for h, 2 for k. And then the radius, you can count either direction. And as you saw in our opening example, you wouldn't want to go diagonal when it's so easy to go horizontal or vertical, right? So the radius here is 3. You don't have to use the distance formula for these. Only if it was a very difficult to figure out graph and you could just figure out one point that wasn't vertical or horizontal. And I don't think that's going to happen at all. So we have x minus a negative 2 squared plus y minus 2 all squared equals 3 squared, and then just simplify. X plus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9. So it's really no different than being told the center and the radius. It's just you have to count it or you have to look at the graph for it. One tiny little extra step, that's it. And notice that if we have a plus, x plus, that means it's on the negative side of the graph. If we have y minus 2, it's on the positive side for y. Any questions at all on this one? We'll do 2 more. But you'll help me with the other 2. I did the first one. All right, so we want to use the graph of a circle to find the equation of the circle. So someone's going to identify the center, someone's going to identify the radius, and then someone's going to write the equation. So identifying the center is blue 2. Where's the center, Mazzy?
Negative 2, 0.
Identifying the radius is purple, no purple 3. Anybody at blue? Yep. And either way you look at it, it's 1. Writing the equation of the circle is green 2.
Get x plus 2, or x minus negative
Yeah, we'll put in that. Oops.
squared.
Now I boo-booed. X minus a negative 2 squared plus
y, well, bracket y minus 0 squared
equals
1 squared.
equals 1 squared. And then we can simplify the double negative, x plus 2 squared. We can drop the minus 0, and that's a pretty easy squaring there. And that's the equation for that circle. This one is not in your notes.
The
Next one is. Right? And identifying the center of the circle is green 3.
The center of the circle is 3, -5.
Make it a little easier for the radius person. Identifying the radius is, oops, green 1
4.
is correct. You think it'll be a green again? Identifying the equation for the circle is red 2. So Angel, what's the equation for this circle?
Alright, it's going to be x minus 3 squared plus y minus -5 squared equals 4 squared.
All right, so we have x minus 3 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 16. And that's just how easy it is. So super easy. I think we're going to do a whiteboard practice. Oh, by the way, in the notes, there's a section for graphing. We're going to skip that, so it's a minor deal. And so it's easy enough. We don't really need to like practice that. I mean, it's super easy. So I'm just going to have you cross it off.
Is it just this bottom part?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if it's in your note, you know what? We could do the 2. All right, we'll just do the 2 examples in our notes. But later. And we won't do any extras. And that's the end of this podcast.
Awesome.